Hello, this is the chapter on determining costs, budget, and earned value. Chapter concepts. In addition to establishing a baseline schedule for a project, it is also necessary to develop a baseline budget. Estimates must be made of the costs for each specific activity. The project budget is determined by aggregating the estimated cost for all the activities. The budget must then be spread over the expected time span of the project to create a time-phased baseline budget that is used to analyze cost performance of the project. So once the project starts, it is important to monitor actual costs and earned value of the work performed. All regular intervals during the project, the following cost related parameters must be monitored. Cumulative actual amount spent since the start of the project. Number two, cumulative earned value of the work performed since the start of the project. And number three, cumulative budgeted amount planned to be spent based on the project schedule from the start of the project. Then comparisons must be made among these three parameters to evaluate whether the project is being accomplished within budget and whether the earned value of the work performed is in line with the actual cost expended. So if at any time during the project it is determined that the project is overrunning the budget or the value of the work performed is not keeping up with the actual cost expended, corrective actions must be taken immediately. Once project costs get out of control, it will be very difficult to complete the project within budget. As you will see in this chapter, the key to effective cost control is to analyze cost performance on a timely and regular basis. Early identification of cost variances allows corrective action to be taken before the situation gets worse. So based on the actual cost experienced or expended and the earned value of the work performed, you will learn how to regularly forecast whether the entire project will be completed within budget. So based on this chapter, you will become familiar with estimating the costs of activities, determining a time-phased baseline budget, determining the earned value of the work performed, analyzing cost performance, forecasting project cost at completion, controlling project costs, managing cash flow. Learning outcomes. So after studying this chapter, you will be able to estimate the cost of activities, aggregate the total budgeted cost, develop a time-phased baseline budget, describe how to accumulate actual costs, determine the earned value of work performed, calculate and analyze key project performance measures, discuss and apply approaches to control the project budget, and explain the importance of managing cash flow. The concepts of in this chapter support the following project management knowledge areas of the PMI Guide to Project Management Body of Knowledge PMBOK. The area is project cost management. To start with, let's estimate the activity costs first. So the total project cost is often estimated during the initiating phase of the project or when the project charter or a proposal is prepared. So the estimated cost for each specific activity can include the following elements. Labor. Okay, labor here. Labor. So the estimated cost for the various types of classifications of people who are expected to work on the project based on the estimated work time, not necessarily the same as the activity's estimated duration, and the dollar labor rate for each person or classification. Then the materials. The estimated cost of material that the project team or contractor needs to purchase for the project. Equipment. Equipment that must be purchased as part of the project. Facilities. Special facilities or additional space for the project team for security or for storing materials, or to build, assemble, and test the project and items. Deliverable. Subcontractors and consultant costs. So these are outsourced when project teams or contractors do not have the expertise or resources to do certain project tasks. Some other types of cost include the travel costs, for example, which is other than the local travel required during the project. Normally the local travel is not included, but the other travel. And then the reserve cost. So this is important. It is also referred to as the contingency. This is to cover the unexpected situations that may come up during the project, such as items that may have been overlooked when the initial project scope was defined. Activities that may have to be redone because they may not work the first time. These are called as the redesigns, or a high probability or high impact risk that may occur. So in this case, there are good practices which must be adopted. However, we can look at the costs in a typical project. So we have been looking at this customer market study project, and for this project the estimated costs have been mentioned over here. So for example, for each activity the different types of costs have been mentioned. So for example, labor in terms of the dollar, this is the labor rate, okay, and then this is the labor cost. So there are 3 days, so each day $260. For 3 days it is $780. So for this there are no other types of costs such as materials and travels, and in this case there was no equipment and subcontractor cost. So not every project will have all the types of costs involved. So since this was a relatively small scale project only involving the consumer market study project, so we have only considered the labor, material, and the travel costs. So most of the costs are the labor costs, but some of them are the travel costs as well. So for example, travel costs involved for performing the pilot test questionnaire. So we may need to travel and go to some other places for conducting the survey. And so for printing questionnaire, maybe we need to provide the fee for the printer, or buy the paper, and then supplies, ink, etc. So all of these costs will be included into the materials cost. So mailing the questionnaire and get responses. So very few are the material and the travel costs. Most of them are the labor costs, and the labor costs are dependent on the labor rate. So that means, for example, how much that resource is charging, okay, for per day, how much resource has been being compensated per day for the resources. So it is a good practice to have the person who will be responsible for the costs associated with the work make the cost estimates. Historical data can be used on the current project. Okay, the cost estimates should be reasonable and realistic, and estimate near term activities more accurately. Okay, and elaborate other costs as additional information is known. So at the beginning of the project, it may not be possible to accurately estimate the costs for all activities. This is especially true for longer term projects. It may be easier to estimate the costs for near term activities, but as the project progresses, the project team can progressively elaborate the estimated costs as more information is known for or become clear to allow for more accurate estimated costs. So after estimating the cost of the activities, so let's go ahead and determine the aggregate total budgeted cost. So the project budgeting process has two steps. First, the project cost estimate is allocated to the various work packages in the project work breakdown structure. And second, the budget for each work package is distributed over the duration of the work package. So aggregate total budgeted cost. So allocating total project costs for the various elements to the appropriate work packages will establish a total budgeted cost for each work package. Okay, total budgeted cost, that means TBC. So there are two approaches to establishing the total budgeted cost for each work package. One is the top down and the other is the bottom up. So often the sum of the initial estimated costs is greater than the amount of funds budgeted by the sponsor. So several iterations may need to be made to reduce the costs. So if we look at this figure, this figure illustrates the allocation of for a $600,000 project. The costs are assigned to each work package. So for example, out of say $600,000, $100,000, $40,000, and then similarly, and then for the contingency, the costs are allocated. So this is the top-down approach. Okay. So when the budget for all the work packages are summed, they cannot exceed the total project budgeted cost. And if we look at the next figure, figure 7.3 over here, and also this figure 7.4, these figures depict the network diagram and the work breakdown structure with the costs assigned. So this example is used throughout in the remainder of this chapter. So for example, this is the network diagram for a packaging machine project. Design, build, install, and test. Okay, and then the packaging machine has the total budget of $100,000, in of which design is $24,000, build is $60,000, and install and test is $16,000. So total will be $100,000. So after aggregate total budgeted cost is established, then we need to develop the cumulative budgeted cost. So for the cumulative budgeted cost, we will distribute each total budgeted cost over the work package duration. So once a total budgeted cost has been established for each work package, the second step in the project budgeting process is to distribute each TBC over the duration of its work package. So a cost is determined for each period based on when the activities that make up the work package as scheduled to be performed to create the time-phased budget. The cumulative budgeted cost is the amount budgeted to accomplish the work scheduled to be performed up to that point in time. This figure over here depicts the budgeted costs by period for the packaging machine project. So remember that this was the packaging machine project, okay? And this is the budgeted cost for this period by period. So if this project goes from 1 to 12 weeks, as maybe you can see from here, 4 plus 6, 10 plus 2, 12 weeks, okay? And then for the design, we have this 24 cost. For the build, we have this much cost, 60 cost. And then for the install and test, we have 800, total 16 costs. And for, yeah, so we have estimated that the cost is distributed like this, okay? In the next figure, it is the cumulative budgeted cost curve for the packaging machine project. So the points on this curve correspond to the cumulative total. So this is the cumulative total. So for example, 4 is the total in the first day, 2 in the total in the 4 in the total in the second day, and similarly so on. And then we have for these are the total, but we can add them together. 4 plus 4 is 8, 8 plus 4 is yeah, 4, this is 4, and then 4 plus 4 is 8, 8 plus 8 is 16, 16 plus 8 is 24, and then up to total is 16. So 100. So if we plot it against time against this cumulative cost, so we will get this curve. So this CBC, cumulative budgeted cost for the entire project or each work package, provides a baseline against which actual cost and work performed can be compared at any time during the project. So the cumulative budget is the standard against which the actual cost is compared. Okay, so now let's talk about the actual cost. So how to determine the actual costs? So once the project starts, it is necessary to keep track of the actual cost and committed cost, so they can be compared to the cumulative budgeted cost. So first, actual cost. So to keep track of actual costs on a project, it is necessary to set up a system to collect on a regular and timely basis data on funds actually expended. And large projects will have charge codes for the work package numbers to determine how the actual costs compare to the planned costs. Committed costs. In many projects, large dollar amounts are expended for materials or services, subcontractors, consultants that are used over a period of time longer than one cost reporting period. So these committed costs need to be treated in a special way, so the system periodically assigns a portion of their total cost to actual cost. Committed costs are also known as commitment or encumbered costs. And costs are committed when an item is ordered, even though actual payment may take place at some later time. And then compare the actual cost to the budgeted cost. So as data are collected on actual cost, including portions of any committed cost, they need to be totaled by work packages. So they can be compared to the cumulative budgeted cost. So the cumulative actual cost should be calculated, and the next figure over here indicates that at the end of week 8, Okay, so for example, at the end of week 8, $68,000 has actually been expended on this project, although only $64,000 was budgeted. So from where we can see $64,000 was budgeted, that we can see from this budgeted cost. So here we can see $64,000 was budgeted, but actual spending is $68,000. So when the cumulative actual cost value, it is possible to draw a cumulative actual cost curve as shown in this figure. So we can draw a cumulative actual cost curve. Okay. So here we can see that in this figure we have drawn two curves. One is the budgeted curves, which is the solid line, and in the dotted line there is this cumulative curve. So here at the end of week 8, cumulative cost is more than the actual the cumulative actual cost is more than the budgeted actual cost. Budgeted cost. Cumulative budgeted cost. Sorry. So here we are using some terms. So one term is the cumulative actual cost, and then the other is the cumulative budgeted cost. Budgeted cost is the one that is planned cost. So next step is determine the value of the work performed. Okay. So consider a project for painting 10 similar rooms over 10 days. So one, that means 10 similar rooms over 10 days, that means one room per day. For a total budget of about $2,000. So that means if there are 10 rooms, so the budget per room will be $200. And if you see that at the end of day 5, $1,000 has been spent, and then but only 3 rooms have been painted. So in this case, the earned value will be, because only 3 rooms have been painted, that means 30% of the work has been performed. So 30% of this total amount of work, which is 2,000, that is the work performed is about $600. Okay, so in this case, the earned value, it is the value of the work actually performed, is a key parameter that must be determined throughout the project. So determining the earned value includes collecting data on the percent complete for each work package, and then converting this percentage to a dollar amount by multiplying the total budgeted cost of the work package by the percent complete. So in many cases, the estimate for the percent complete is subjective. It's important that the person estimating the percent complete not only assesses how much work has been performed, but also consider what work remains to be done. So for example, in the project to paint 10 rooms for $2,000, if the 3 rooms have been completed, it's safe to say that 30% of the work has been performed. So the earned value, as we have calculated over here, is $600. So in this case, as we can see by this comparison, we can see that $400 extra have been expended than the earned value, because the actual amount spent was $1,000, but which was calculated, which was estimated separately from the earned value. Okay, so the difference between $1,000 and $600 is $400. So let's see in these figures some more information. So for example, this is the figure with the cumulative percentage complete by period for the packaging machine project. Okay, so as we can see that by the end of day 8, this much work was completed. So that means percentage complete. So that means 100% work was completed in the design, 50% work was completed in the build, and 0% work was completed in the install and test. And in this next figure, which depicts the cumulative earned value by period for the packaging machine. So this is the cumulative earned value. So in this case, the total earned value in this case is $54. So which is basically for the design, the total earned value is 24, and therefore the build, the total earned value is 30, because 50% of the work was completed. Total work was 60, so 50% of 60 is 30, so total for the project will be 54%. So here we can see that compared with the previous two charts. So that was the previous chart for the actual cost, and that is this chart now for the actual cost plus the amount of work performed. So amount of work performed is $54. So in this case we can see that both we have spent more, and also we have performed less amount of work as well. Okay, 54% of the work, whereas the work should have been performed much higher. Okay, it's more than, I think at the end of the week 8 the work should have been performed by like how much? Week 8, this is from the budgeted cost by period, 64%. So 64% work should have been performed, but only 54% work has been performed. And let's look at this next figure. Yeah, this figure. Yeah, this figure illustrates the cost of cumulative budgeted cost, cumulative actual cost, and the cumulative earned value for the entire project. So once we calculate the cumulative budgeted cost, cumulative actual cost, and cumulative earned value at the end of certain period, so we can analyze the cost performance. So for this we can consider 4 cost related measures. So total budgeted cost, so this is the total budgeted cost for the whole project. Cumulative budgeted cost, this is the total budgeted cost up to that period. For example, if the project is say 6 weeks duration, at the end of say 4 weeks duration, whatever the budgeted cost was there, that will be the cumulative budgeted cost. So total budgeted cost will be for the whole period, for the 6 weeks project. And the cumulative actual cost is likewise what was actual spent, and cumulative earned value is the one that means the amount of that is the value of the work performed up to that point in time. So then we can use these to analyze the project cost performance. So what we can do is we can plot the CBC, CSC, and CEV curves on the same graph, like we have done before over here. Like we can draw done on the same graph. So it can reveal any on the same graph to reveal any trends towards improving or deteriorating cost performance. So in the packaging machine project that we have seen before, so we have seen that the percentage budgeted to have been spent is 64%. Percent actually spent is 68%, and percent of work complete is 64%. So we can see that by this comparison, we can see that the project has spent more than the actual amount. The project has spent more than the amount which has been earned. That means this much amount has been earned, and then the project has performed less than it was required to do. So therefore, actually the comparison is between this earned value and the actual spent, and the earned value and the budgeted spent values. So that comparison we can perform in the form of certain variances and indexes. So let's look at first the index. So there are two indexes. One is the cost performance index. So the cost performance index is a measure of the cost efficiency with which the project is being performed. The formula for determining the cost performance index is cost performance index is equal to cost earned value divided by cumulative actual cost. Cumulative earned value divided by the cumulative actual cost. So CPI is equal to cumulative earned value divided by the cumulative actual cost. In most of the other books, we don't use this word cumulative over here. It is all actually understood that the costs which we are taking are the cumulative costs. So the other books use just EV and AC as the symbol. In the packaging machine project, the cost performance index as of week 8 is given by 0.69 because $54,000 was the earned value and $68,000 was actually spent. So the ratio of them is 0.69. So it means that this ratio indicates that for every $1 actually expended, only $0.79 of work earned value was achieved. So when the cost performance index goes below 1 or gradually gets smaller, corrective action should be taken. Another measure is the cost variance, which is similar to the cost performance index, but instead of taking the ratio, we take the difference of the value. Another indicator of the cost performance is the cost variance, so which is the difference between the cumulative earned value of the work performed and the cumulative actual cost. So the cost variance is equal to cumulative earned value minus cumulative actual cost. So CV is equal to CEV minus CAC. So in this packaging machine project, the cost variance then can be simply calculated as, because we already know these values, 54,000 was the earned value and 68,000 was the actual value, actual cost, and 64,000 was budgeted. But in this case, for cost variance, we only need these two values, 54 and 68,000. So 54 minus 68,000 is equal to minus 14,000. So this calculation indicates that the value of the work performed through this week 8 is for $14,000 less than the amount actually expended. Okay, so with this information, we can also calculate the estimate cost at completion. So based on analysis of the actual cost, it is possible to forecast what the total cost will be at the completion of the project or work package. So there are three different methods for determining the forecasted cost at completion. So forecasted cost at completion, so FCAC. Okay. So the first method assumes that the as the remaining work will be done at the same rate of efficiency as the work performed so far. So in this case, forecasted cost at completion, this one, this is from the first method. Forecasted cost at completion is equal to total budgeted cost divided by the cost performance index. So this formula assumes that the condition will not change. The present condition was determined by the cost performance index. This cost performance index will keep continuing, and then until the end of the project, and then this will be helpful in finding the forecasted cost at completion. So if we apply this formula for the packaging project by this first method, so we already calculated the cost performance index was 0.79, and the total budgeted cost for this project was $100,000. Remember this $100,000 here. Let me go back again. Yeah, total budgeted cost was $100,000. That means $100,000 several slides before. So now let's go back over here. Here, yes. So forecasted cost at completion by the first method is equal to total budgeted cost divided by the cost performance index. It will be $126,582. Okay, and then there is actually a second formula as well. The second method for determining the forecasted cost at completion assumes that regardless of the efficiency rate of the project or work package has experienced in the past, the remaining work will be done according to the budget. That means whatever has happened has happened. From now on, we will go according to the budget. So in this case, the forecasted cost at completion will be determined by this formula. So this will be the cumulative actual cost, whatever the actual cost which has been performed, and then what is the cost remaining, that is total budgeted cost, and then the this is the amount of work which was performed. So total budgeted cost minus this amount of work that is performed, that is the amount of work remaining, budgeted cost of the amount of work remaining. So this will be added into the actual cost which was spent. So that will give us this second formula. Okay. So in the second formula, we will assume that for the remaining work, we will follow our original plan. Okay. So for this second formula, the forecasted cost at completion will be $114,000 because cumulative actual cost was $68,000. As we can see, over here, cumulative actual cost was $68,000 over here, and total budgeted cost was $100,000, and the cumulative earned value was $46,000. Cumulative earned value was actually is $54,000, but here I think it's by mistake it was written as $46,000, but nevertheless it was for $54,000 is there already, correct? And then $100,000 minus $54,000, that is $56,000. So total will be $114,000. So in this case, forecasted cost at completion will be $114,000. So it depends on what method you choose. If you think that in the future the condition will be as planned, so then we can use the second method. But if you assume that in the future, if the condition does not change, it remains as like we are doing now, then we can use this first method. So, and then there is a third method as well. So that third method is, the formula is forecasted cost at completion is equal to cumulative cost at completion plus re-estimate of the remaining work. Okay, so this is a more like a more practical approach. So whatever the cost has been completed now, and then the remaining work is estimated. So this is, in this third method for determining the forecasted cost at completion is to re-estimate the cost for all the remaining work to be performed and add this to the estimate of the cumulative cost, cumulative actual cost. So in this case, the estimate of the remaining work has to be done afresh. Okay, from have to be done by some other method or by adopting some new information. Okay, so whatever the estimate will be, then that is to be added into the cumulative actual cost. There is another formula. This is called as the TCPI. TCPI means CPI is cost performance index. TCPI means to is to complete. T is for to complete performance index. To complete performance index. Okay, so that means whatever the work has been remaining for the performance of that remaining work. Okay, so this formula is total budgeted cost minus the cumulative earned value. So that is the amount of work remaining. Okay, amount of work remaining divided by a total budgeted cost minus the cumulative actual cost. What is the amount spent and what is the actual amount spent? Okay, what is the difference? So in this case, you can see that two complete performance indexes 100 minus 54,000 and 100 minus 68,000. So it will be 1.44. So remember that in the cost performance index, when the cost performance index was greater than 1, then it would be that we are spending less, or if it is less than 1, then it will be we are spending more. But in the to complete performance index, the index greater than 1 will mean that we have to spend we have to get more work done, okay, for the amount spent. So in this case, it's 1.44 simply indicates that for every dollar of work performed, we have to for every $1 actually spent, we have to perform $1.44 worth of amount worth of work to complete the project at the budgeted cost. Definitely, it is a difficult task. Okay, so with this, let's talk about the control of costs. So in this case, for controlling the cost, the key to effective cost control is to analyze cost performance on a regular and timely basis. It is crucial that cost variance and inefficiencies be identified early so that the corrective action can be taken before the situation gets worse. So the cost control includes the following. First of all, analyze the cost performance to determine which work packages may require corrective actions, and then decide what specific corrective action should be taken, and then revising the project plan, including time and cost estimates, to incorporate the planned corrective action. So when evaluating the work packages that have a negative cost variance, focus on taking corrective actions to reduce the costs of two types of activities. Uh, First of all, activities that will be performed in the near term. If you put off corrective actions until some point in distant future, the negative cost variance may deteriorate. Or the activities that have a large cost estimate. So taking corrective actions Effective measures that reduce the cost of $20,000 activity by 10% will have a larger impact than $20,000 activity by 10% will have a large impact than totally eliminating a $300 activity. So there are various ways to reduce the costs of activities. We can substitute less expensive materials, assign a person with greater expertise or more experience to perform or help with the activity, reduce the scope of requirements, and increase productivity through improved methods or technology. In many cases, there will be a trade-off. Reducing cost variances will require a reduction in project scope or a delay in the project schedule. So the key to effective cost control is aggressively addressing negative cost variances and cost inefficiencies as soon as they are identified. Manage cash flow. It is important to manage the cash flow on a project. Managing cash flows means making sure sufficient payments are received from the customer in time so that you have enough money to cover the costs of performing the project. So the key to managing cash flow is to ensure that cash comes in faster than it goes out. So the contractor might try negotiate payment terms that require the customer to do one or more of this following. So provide a down payment at the start of the project, make equal monthly payments based on the expected duration of the project, and provide frequent payments such as weekly or monthly payments rather than quarterly payments. So the worst scenario from the contractor's point of view is to have the customer make only one payment at the end of the project, and the customer can control its outflow of cash by delaying payments until it is due. Okay. Cost estimating for information systems development. There are actually some common errors in determining the costs which are included here. But remember that this is the information systems development project, which is the same project which was introduced from chapter number 4. So in chapter number 4, the information system project was defined as a computer-based system that accepts data as input, processes the data, and produces information required by users. In chapter number 5, it was revealed that scheduling is often done in a haphazard manner, resulting in a large number of information system projects not finishing on time. And in chapter number 6, we reinforced the resource requirements, planning necessary for people, hardware, software, data, and network resources. So in this chapter, it is addressed that the cost estimating in the information system project, accordingly estimating costs and including a reserve are essential in creating a realistic budget to complete the work without cost overruns. So having a good plan and schedules helps to develop cost estimates and a baseline budget. So common errors in estimating costs. Underestimating the work time necessary to complete an activity, requiring rework to meet the user requirements, underestimating growth in project scope, not anticipating new hardware purchases, making corrections to flaws in excess of the reserve planning, changing the design strategy, and increasing resources to fast track phases of the systems development life cycle. So, as we have seen from chapter number 4, that this was the project, the information system. This is figure 7.13, which depicts the estimated activity costs for the web-based reporting development project with a 5% reserve for cost overruns. Fast tracking of the project or increased costs of materials or travel for the interviews. So as a background, let me say to you that if you recall from chapter 4, 5, and 6, that Beth Smith was assigned to the project manager, assigned to be the project manager by the information systems development of the ABC office design. Okay. And then you can also recall that in chapter number 5 described how Beth had scheduled the early start, early finish, late start, and late finish times for the activities necessary to complete the web-based reporting system development project for the ABC office design. And in chapter number 6 described how Beth and the project team planned the resources for the 60-day schedule they have to complete the project. The management approved a budget of $125,000 to complete the project and train the sales staff. So after confirming with the primary responsible resources that the task could be completed with the estimated level of effort on each task, Beth worked with the human resources team to use the hourly wage for each of the employees to determine the labor costs for each of the web-based reporting system project activities. And Beth and the project team estimated the cost associated with the traveling to complete the interviews with the users, which is $3,000. The price of the packaged software, $500, and the cost of the training materials, $1,300. The budgeted costs of the work to complete the projects were near the $125,000 limit without training the sales staff. So you can see that the total cost for this project was estimated to be $119,000, and the most of the costs were like labor costs, and then some of them are the material and the travel costs. Project management information system. So the all costs associated with each resource in a project can be stored, and the software will calculate the budget for each work package and for the entire project. And the project management software usually allows the users to define different rate structures for each resource, and when charges for those resources will actually be accrued. So the cost tables and graphs are often available to help analyze cost performance. Okay, so with the discussion in this topic, in this chapter, we have learned the following critical success factors. Estimated activity costs must be based on the estimated activity resources. The person who will be responsible for performing the activity should estimate the costs for that activity. This generates commitment from the person. Cost estimates should be reasonable and realistic. Once the project starts, it is important to monitor actual costs and work performance to ensure that everything is within budget. A system should be established to collect on a regular and timely basis data on costs actually expended and committed, and the earned value percent complete of the work performed. So they can be compared to a cumulative budgeted cost. If at any time during the project it is determined that the project is overrunning the budget or the value of the work performed is not keeping up with the actual amount of costs expended, corrective action must be taken immediately. It is important to use the time-phased cumulative budgeted cost rather than the total budgeted cost as the baseline against which cumulative actual cost is compared. It would be misleading to compare the actual costs expended to the budgeted cost because cost performance will always look good as long as actual costs are below the total budgeted cost. To permit a realistic comparison of cumulative actual cost to the cumulative budgeted cost, portions of the committed cost should be assigned to actual costs while the associated work is in progress. The earned value of the work actually performed is a key parameter that must be determined and reported throughout the project. So for each reporting period, the percent complete data should be obtained from the person responsible for the work. It is important that the person make an honest assessment of the work performed relative to the entire work scope. One way to prevent inflated percent complete estimates is to keep the work packages or activities small in terms of scope and duration. It is important that the person estimating the percent complete assess not only how much work has been performed, but also what work remains to be done. The key to effective cost control is to analyze cost performance on a timely and regular basis. So early identification of cost variances allows corrective actions to be taken immediately before the situation gets worse. And then for analyzing cost performance, it is important that all the data collected be as current as possible and be based on the same reporting period. Trends in the cost performance index should be monitored carefully. If CPI goes below 1 or gradually decreases, corrective action should be taken. As part of the regular cost performance analysis, the estimated or forecasted cost at completion should be calculated. So the key to effective cost control is to aggressively address work packages or activities with negative cost variances and cost inefficiencies as soon as they are identified. A concentrated effort must be applied to these areas. The amount of negative cost variances should determine the priority for applying these concentrated efforts. And when attempting to reduce negative cost variances, focus on activities that will be performed in the near term and on activities that have large estimated cost. And addressing cost problems early will minimize the negative impact on the scope and schedule. When costs gets out of control, getting back within budget becomes more difficult, and it is likely to require reducing the project scope or quality or extending the project schedule. The key to managing cash flow is to ensure that cash comes in faster than it goes out. It is desirable to receive payments from the customer as early as possible and to delay making payments to suppliers or subcontractors as long as possible. And this is the summary of this topic. So the total project cost is often estimated during the initiating phase of the project when the project charter or a proposal is prepared, but detailed plans are not usually prepared at that time. The project budgeting process involves two steps. The budget for each work package is determined and the budget for each work package is then distributed over the expected time. Aggregating the estimated costs of the specific activities for The appropriate work package in the work breakdown structure will establish a total budget at budgeted cost. And the cumulative budgeted cost is the time-phased baseline budget that will aggregating the estimated costs of the specific activities for the appropriate work package in the work breakdown structure will establish a total budgeted cost. The cumulative budgeted cost CBC is the time-phased baseline budget that will be used to analyze the cost performance of the project. At any time during the project, it is possible to forecast what the total cost will be at the completion of the project or work package based on analysis of actual cost expended and the earned value of work performed. The key to effective cost control is to analyze cost performance on a regular and timely basis. And it is important to manage the cash flow on a project.